is advanced care planning? It's a process. It does take some time. It's really thinking about what's important to you, thinking about your beliefs and values, and how those are going to influence your healthcare decisions in the future. It gives you a voice in decision making and helps you decide who's going to speak for you if you become incapable of making your own healthcare decisions. Remember, as long as you're capable, you always will be asked to make your own healthcare decisions. But if you become incapable, then you need to think about who's going to be making those decisions on your behalf. So it's a process that includes thinking, talking, and planning. Why should we have an advanced care plan? Well, I see it as part of life planning. Just as you've done your financial planning and your estate planning, it's really important to think about your health and personal care planning. And that's what advanced care planning allows you to do. We're living longer, and most of us are going to die of or with chronic diseases. About 87% of us in Canada are dying of chronic diseases. Having an advanced care plan allows you to make your plans for future health care in terms of the decisions that you would want, and whether it's accepting certain health care or, in fact, whether it's something you do not want to have. It really eases the burden on your loved ones. I had a daughter of a patient tell me that her parents' advanced care plan was a gift. It really reassured her that she knew what her parents wanted, and she felt she was able to honor their wishes. So who needs an advanced care plan? All adults, regardless of your age, regardless of your state of health. It's really important to think about your future healthcare decisions. We don't know when things are going to change. We could have a sudden change, a new diagnosis, or perhaps something that we're living with, a chronic disease, becomes much worse. Or there could be an accident or injury. So an advanced care plan must be made while you're still capable. So you want to be able to make those plans and express what it is that you want or don't want. How do you create a plan? Where do you start? Well, first you need to spend a lot of time thinking about what's right for you. Everybody's advanced care plan can be different. We all have our own beliefs and values. So what are your beliefs and values, particularly if you become ill, and how do those influence the decisions that you want to make about your health care? What about end-of-life planning? What is it you fear? Make informed decisions. So in terms of your personal values and beliefs, think about what gives your life meaning. Are there activities, hobbies, experiences, or relationships that really make you happy? What does quality of life mean to you? That can be different for all of us. Who are those important people in your life? And do you have spiritual, cultural, or religious values and beliefs that are important to you? Once you've thought about those values, you need to turn those into your health care or wishes for health care. Think about your future health care. If you have a chronic condition, or if suddenly something changes and you become ill or injured. What worries you when you think about your future health care? What do you want when you're nearing the end of your life? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be at home? Do you want to be in hospital? Do you want to be in a hospice unit? When you're doing your research, particularly like most of us, I'm sure do, we go on the web, particularly if we've been given a new diagnosis, and we start looking things up. There are some very good, reliable sources. 811 BC HealthLink. You can phone or you can go online. Has excellent resources on any chronic condition. There are a number of well-known medical institutions, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinics, and some universities also have excellent websites. One I would really recommend is McMaster. It has a wonderful website on aging. So who do you want involved in your future health and personal care? Who will be your decision maker if you become incapable? Now, this is the consent legislation. So in BC, and it's different in every province. So if you've come from another province, you need to, and maybe you've even created some sort of advanced directive or advanced care plan in another province. Our legislation is a little bit different, so you need to make sure that it's a fit. So we have our Healthcare Consent and Facilities Admission Act. Should you become incapable, and if you have not previously appointed somebody as your legal healthcare representative, then your healthcare providers need to find a temporary substitute decision maker. Now, the legislation guides healthcare professionals in this, and there's a list of people that can be approached, and they must be approached in order. So the first person that would be approached to be this temporary substitute decision maker would be the patient's spouse. If there is no spouse, then it is the adult children. So this is where it can get tricky if there's more than one child. And if you haven't had those discussions with your children in terms of what your wishes are for future health care, each child may actually interpret what they believe you want differently. I've seen some families almost torn apart by this, where children couldn't agree in terms of what their parent may have wanted for future health care. So it is really important to think about who your decision maker is going to be. It should be somebody you trust to make healthcare decisions that you would want. The temporary substitute decision maker or the healthcare representative is required to make decisions that you want, not what they necessarily would want for themselves. So who can honor your wishes, even though there can be conflict, and who can communicate that to your healthcare team? Once you've gone through the thinking and the planning, you need to document your advanced care plan. There are a number of workbooks available, and I will be giving the slides to Ian, and the last slide will have a number of resources linked to it. But I would suggest that you keep the plan itself very simple, so it's something you can share with your healthcare provider and your loved ones. My personal plan is a 1.5-page Word document where I've summarized things. So you need, of course, your full name, your signature, and your date. There's no legal requirement in terms of what this plan needs to look like, but these are some of the things that should be included. So if you do not have a healthcare representative, of course that person's contact information would be included, but also anybody who could be approached as a temporary substitute decision maker. So in an emergency or whatever, your healthcare providers need to have that contact information, so it should be available. I'd suggest that you put a summary of your wishes and your values. The values are important because it's going to help the decision maker understand why you came to the decisions that you did. So you would include, obviously, your wishes for future health care and end-of-life care. If you have a representation agreement, that needs to be included. An advance directive is a little different, and I know in different provinces we call an advanced care plan something different. In some provinces it is called an advance directive. In BC, an advance directive is a very, very specific request. It can be something like a do not resuscitate order, or it could be something like kidney failure, I do not want to have dialysis. So it's a very, very specific request. You need to share your wishes. So who needs to be included? Well, obviously your family or anybody who could become a potential temporary substitute decision maker. What should be included in the conversation? Well, as I said, in terms of what you've documented, certainly it's important to have that discussion in terms of your values and your beliefs and how those are really influencing the decisions that you want made on your behalf. This can be a really difficult conversation for some families. I do get it. You know, as a retired nurse, my family got used to some pretty unusual dinner topics, but I know that that's not the norm. And some families or some people in families just want to avoid the topic. It's like, it's not happening. Well, it's going to happen sometime, and it's so much easier if the preparations have been done in advance. So how can you start the conversation? Well, I suggest you kind of look for triggers. You know, if you've been diagnosed with something new, or if there's been a change in your health care, or perhaps even in somebody else that you know, their condition has changed, use that as a trigger and say to your spouse or your kids, you know, so-and-so has just been given this diagnosis or has just gone to hospital with this. And it's really made me think about, you know, what I would want for my future health care. This may take some time. It may be a conversation that's not going to be done all at once. It may not be over a dinner table. Maybe it's done more intimately over coffee with somebody. But those conversations do need to happen. Your healthcare team, whether that be your physician, nurse practitioner, whomever is involved in delivering your healthcare, also need to be aware of your wishes. You can share a copy of the document with them. If you're arranging for a visit with your physician or nurse practitioner, let them know that specifically this visit is to discuss your care plan. You may have already, you know, talked to your healthcare provider and included them in some of the research that you were doing as you were developing your plan. But they do need a copy of the plan. If you're going to hospital and it's a booked admission, you can take a copy of your plan with you. If you're at home, what most of our paramedics in BC have been trained to do is to see if there's any information attached to your fridge door. You know, sometimes there's just a little piece of information that can be what your meds are, or where your list of meds are, or where your advanced care plan is. Just make sure it's somewhere accessible. Or you can let people know through a wallet card. Some of the workbooks will actually have a little detachable wallet card you can complete, and it says you have an advanced care plan and where it's kept. Some people have been able to use their phone, their emergency contact, and make sure that their emergency contact, probably their temporary substitute decision maker as well, is notified. So even if your phone is turned off, your emergency contact information is available. So just to review the steps then for creating your advanced care plan is really thinking about what's important to you. What are your values? What are your beliefs? And then how are those going to influence the health care and end-of-life care that you will need? Determine who is going to make decisions on your behalf, whether that's going to be a healthcare representative, or if you're comfortable with your spouse and or children being your temporary substitute decision maker, if you're confident that they'll be able to make decisions that honor your wishes, then you do not need a healthcare representative. Document your plan, share it with family, with your healthcare providers, and review and update it regularly. You know, what's important to you now can change in 5 years. So I would recommend that at least on an annual basis, that you review your advanced care plan and just make sure it's still fit for you. So these are the resources that I use, and I will share these slides. Island Health and HealthLink BC both will have a link to a workbook called My Voice. It does allow you to document your care plan as such, but it's very lengthy. I tend to use it much more as a workbook rather than the final document, because I don't think anybody wants to go through 10 pages or more when they're trying to determine what it is you would want. So use it as a workbook. Dying with Dignity is a sort of federal non-for-profit. It has excellent resources. But the language they use is probably based on Ontario legislation, so I just caution you if you're using that as a resource. The language is a little different, but they do have an excellent advanced care planning resource. NIDUS is a BC non-for-profit agency that started at about the time the legislation came out. And it has excellent resources as well. And it also has resources on comity and estate planning, all other kinds of resources, as well as health and personal care planning. Advanced Care Planning Canada, excellent resource, but again, from a national perspective. BC Centre for Palliative Care, and our own BC Public Guardian and Trustee. These are all useful resources. All right, we have some time for questions, I think.
So if you do your if you do your own care plan, as you said, like summarizing what, like this is lengthy.
You got it's very lengthy, yes.
Do you still need witnesses?
No.
Just my signature is good enough.
Mm-hmm. The witnesses are required if you're doing a healthcare representation agreement. And there is, I believe, a copy of that in My Voice. many people do use their lawyer, but it's not a requirement. When the legislation first came out in the late 90s, that was something we pushed back on from the health authority, that at that time a lawyer was required, and we saw it as a barrier. Many people couldn't afford to use a lawyer, and a lawyer is not required for a healthcare representation agreement, but you can use one if you want.
So you also name a temporary substitute caregiver in your summary?
You would give the list.
Okay.
You can't name one because the healthcare provider is required to go through the list in priority. So in terms of the spouse, the children, go through the list. But as I said, if you're comfortable, and even if you have a representation agreement, I always suggest you have a substitute. Because if that one person isn't answering the phone, an emergency's calling, they need somebody to be able to speak on your behalf. So it's nice to know that there's an alternate. Yes.
If someone is holding power of attorney for you, wouldn't they be empowered to make these
No,
decisions?
power of attorney is only for financial or business decisions. And I'm glad you asked the question because many people will say, oh, I don't have to worry about that. I have a POA agreement. The power of attorney has no authority to make healthcare decisions on your behalf.
How binding for healthcare is that power of attorney?
The representation agreement is very binding. Yeah, as a health, former nurse, it is binding. As I said, as long as you're capable, you'll be making all your own decisions. But if you become incapable, then this person will speak on your behalf. Yes?
The decision-making representative. Is there any residency issue? Like I'm thinking, for example, we have a daughter who resides in British Columbia. We have a daughter who resides in Australia. So, do any issues arise in that context?
Only if it's going to be a challenge to contact them, because of time differences or whatever. And that's where I would suggest that, you do need to make sure that that person is accessible. And it's good to have name an alternate in case they aren't.